important that we put that in our YouTube playlist. So welcome everyone. Now, and as you can see in the screen, we shall start with day 2 on the transportation management WebEx training on BI. I'm joined here in the room with Sol Evangelio, my colleague that will be monitoring the Q&A and we'll be coordinating with you guys in case that you have any questions. So good morning to you, Sol.
Good morning, everybody. This is Sol here. Just to remind you guys that feel free to ask, to intervene, to add whatever you consider. I will be monitoring all your concerns. And thanks a lot for being here. Okay, then.
Thank you, Sol. So I do see now that the attendee list is growing now. So good. Remember yesterday, this is just for the sake of do a little bit of recap. As you can see on the screen, yesterday, 10th of December, we started with the BI introduction and a very high-level overview on the BI reports that are covering this topic in production. And then we jumped into report number 1, the end-to-end delivery requirements and charges. As I know that most of you, for the feedback that I have received from yesterday's session, were not so, let's see, acquainted with the system, with BI in general. On the other hand, some others, and I see Vesna and Sasha and Adrian and some other colleagues as well, they are very, very knowledgeable on the topic. So we did focus more on the ones of you who, as I said, were not very familiar with the tools. That's why we spent 30 minutes of our time with the BI introduction, so you understand where the data is coming from and the exception that these TM reports have in BI, which is that the data has not 24-hour delay from the transactional system to the BI system, but on the contrary, what you see in BI, it's live data. So all the transactions created, all the documents created in the TM module will be automatically reflected in any of the BI reports that you launch any time of the day. So that's a very, very important exception if we compare these reports with some other modules in Moya. Yes, so.
Sorry to interrupt, Daniel, but Jamil suggested that maybe we could set a reminder because apparently there is some problem looking for the second session link for some of the participants. So maybe we could send a reminder because maybe that's the reason why. So just let me I will send the reminder right now. But just maybe to gain some time while we are waiting for the other colleagues. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So we did send 3 separate invitations. So yes, glad if you could send out a reminder as well. So I resume with the topic as a recap from yesterday's session. Then we covered a little bit report number 1 on the end-to-end delivery requirements and charges. This is a quite important report. Why? As you can see in the prompt, that it's related to the end-to-end report. It gives you kind of like a logical sequence of the documents that you can find in the TM module, starting from the DTR, continuing by the freight unit, and then sorry, the freight order that it's created at the end. So the good thing about the end-to-end report that we did see yesterday is just we have an holistic view of the whole process. So we can start our analysis by basically using the DTR document, any given DTR document, or any FU document, or we can actually link both documents, a DTR with an FU, and see elements related to the FO as well. So that's a quite important report. Out of the 4 that we are going to cover this week, this is probably the most important because it's the one that, as I said, covers an end-to-end, let's say, process from the starting of the delivery, transport requirement or request up until the freight order is created, and then that all transport it's done and closed. So we did spend a little bit of time in explaining the prompt, and as you probably know already, there is no mandatory fields in this prompt, so you can always click in OK, and then you will be you will be retrieving all data with all these master data elements for all the UN entities. So then in the report phase, you will be able to filter and change the attributes that you deem necessary and do the analysis. So that's, as I said, the recap as the yesterday's sessions. Then a little bit on how you can work with the report, with the end-to-end. Remember that you have a series of attributes as a DTR level, then another ones as in the FU level, and plenty of them for FO, right? And then as a measure, remember that measures in the BI in these BI reports are numbers related to number of documents, number of consignees, shippers, PO lead times or number of hours, number of items, average times, in this case number of carriers. So these bluish bubbles will be the ones linked to DTR. We have one measure related to a few linked to the number of documents that the system finds for each of the DTR, which will be one-to-one, because remember that there is a one-to-one relationship between these two elements. And then as a FO, as a freight order, we can analyze plenty of information in terms of quantity, weight, volume, number of items, and averages in terms of, for example, cargo volume, cargo weight, or troops quantity. So remember that theoretically we did explain how this report works in terms of with this slide, but then we jumped into the demo, and then we showed to you how the report works, especially if we take into account what we identified as KPI sample. This is the work that RDM has done, identifying just as a cheat sheet, as a guide, some sort of structured document that you can follow, and identify several KPIs with its description and which is the report that will give you information for this KPI, particular KPI. And then on top of that, and this is very important, the fields that you should use in order to determine this KPI. So as we said yesterday, this is not official, an official document that the business itself in transportation management has launched. This is just a cheat sheet, support document, an Excel that may give you a little bit of let's say help, especially when you're starting to use BI, because the KPIs are quite easy, and as you can see in the fields, we are talking about only 1, 2, 3 attributes and one measure. So it's easy to identify all those KPIs and starting to do a little bit of analysis on transportation management. So next slide, it's the report that we are going to cover today, which is the delivery requirements and forwarding orders. As we did do yesterday, we're going to basically jump from the presentation to the live demo, to the system. So let me just drag and drop the report and just wait until it resizes. Okay, so remember that we are always in the transportation and event management folder in production. This is the first report, delivery requirements and forwarding order, the one that we are going to cover today. So let me double click. And this is the prompt that you'll see initially. Although it has plenty of master data elements, mostly devoted to DTR documents, starting from all the specifics on the documents type, the category, the date from and to on the requirement on transportation, the status related to the life cycle, execution status, planning status, and movement type. As you could see, this is more devoted or pivots to the DTR rather than to the FO, as we saw yesterday in the end-to-end. So this report will give us a lot of information from the DTR perspective, and the measures will be mostly covering the FO information. So this is the prompt that we will see initially, and let me see the presentation. So the business need for this report, it's intended to facilitate the exploration of all information related to the delivery-based transportation requirement documents and the forwarding order. So FU information, freight units, is not within the scope of this report. So the objective of the report will be to support the business itself with assessment of all the shipments from a wide variety of perspectives. And some analysis that we could do initially, it's first the number of documents, DTRs, by consignee, by mission. And as you can see, that's defaulted, meaning that if I go to the system, this is a prompt, and basically there are no required fields. You see, if I go to the required tab, no required fields, and I click in OK, automatically, what I will see, it's what you can see in the screen now. It's the number of documents, the DTRs, by consignee, by missions. That's the default view that the system will give us if we do not filter in the prompt by any of the items. That is, so as you can see in the system now, I click on OK, and you see the consignee. The master data element is the plant itself in terms of inventory management, right? With the description of each of the consignees, and then the number of DTRs created by each one of them. So that's the default view that we can see. Then some other analyses are related to the documents breakdown. So all the DTRs created by month, by quarter, by year, the status of picking and packing of inbound and outbound deliveries, the life cycle status, whether the document's new, it's in planning, it's planned, in execution, completed, by document category, whether it's a DTR or a FO. 02, 03 will be the code that you can see in BI. Document type, that's important because you can do basically either filter by all UNOE type of transportation or STO or COE, right? So that's set D01, set D02, set FW1. So document type will be an important attribute that you can use in order to do specific analysis on those type of transportations. Then in terms of physical characteristics, we do have plenty of information related to the cubic meters, gross, height, width, length. And in terms of value, the document currency, or whether it's US dollars, and specifics on each of the document numbers. If you want to link DTR and document number with the different FOs related, so you can do that. And the PO itself, which it's called in this, let's see, view, original number. Okay, we'll see that in a minute. And then, which is the transportation mode used, the location, etc. So there is plenty of information from the DTR perspective, right? And the measures will be for the FO perspective as well. So we do have two tabs in this report, a summary tab, as you can see in the upper part, and then a details tab. The summary tab, it's what we saw just before, which is the default view with all the consignees and then the number of DTRs created. And the details tab gives us a little bit of more information on the document category and the origin, the original delivery picking, and the packing status as well. So if I click here in details, in the tab, details, you'll see that the report expands and gives us much more detailed information from the DTR perspective on the document type, on the description of the document types, whether it's delivery-based transportation or the Incoterm as well. So it's already predefined by each of the documents. And then description of the Incoterm. So it's FCA, free carrier, DAP, delivered at placed, and so on and so forth. And in terms of measures, I'm going to double click in the possibilities that we have here. So we do have gross value item from the DTR document, the gross weight per item, document level, quantity, height, width, length, number of documents created, the goods value, item in document currency, let's say, and the same amount in US dollars. Right, so information on items, on the, let's say, quantities, and then volumes, heights. Let's see a bit of the description of the transportation as well. So that's in terms of measures. If we compare this report with yesterday's report with end-to-end, it has a less number of measures, right? Because it's very devoted to the DTR part, to the description of the request of the transportation requirement, rather than to give us information at the FO perspective. So this is the initial prompt where we can see. And then I want to drag your attention to the job aid that our colleagues in RDM drafted for this particular report. If I click on the job aid, you'll see that this is already an official document. No, that's even details. Okay, so this is the delivery requirements and FOs. So basically, always the same starts, gives us a little bit of information on how to access VI, and then how what's the expected prompt initially, how you can basically work with the match code and the filtering at the prompt level, right? And then the initial layout that we saw now in production, right, in the summary and the details stuff. How you can export. We will export a couple of reports today as well, so you understand how it's done. And then last but not least, and very important, description of all the measures and the attributes that you can find in the report, right? So in case that you have any specific, concern about what this DTR buyer's reference number or original delivery means, then you have a description that will give you information on that particular attribute, which is original inbound or outbound delivery number for DTR or MOU description if we are going to transport troops in this case, right? So, this is like a syllabus of all the different legend of all the different items that you can find, and description of all of them, even with the description of the codes that you can see the document category level or document type level, even the execution status as well. Okay, so over to you, Sol.
Just to comment something about what you are talking about, this I think is super useful, guys. So take into consideration that you can have a look at this document, because sometimes you have fields that you are not aware that you have available, and you can find out some important information that is already there, but sometimes we don't know it's happening to me as well. So just to share with you that it's very important just to have a look at these job aids and be aware of all the possibilities that you have that are a lot of super useful. So thanks. Over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Sol. Yes, indeed. At least just from my own experience, first thing I do is when I receive the job aid, it's basically go through it and then start doing the demos based a little bit on what I find in the job aid. And as we saw yesterday, we are performing the demo. Sometimes we have some questions that questions that arises in the middle of the demo. So we go to the job aid, look up for specific attribute or description, and then making sure that what we're doing, what we're dragging and dropping, what we are analyzing in the demo makes sense from the job aid perspective. And then important, one of the last titles in all the job aids is the scope determination, which gives you the range of data that it's covering this, let's say, cube of data. So scope determination for this particular report, for delivery requirements and forwarding orders, is this report selects all DTRs and FWOs records with no restrictions. Okay, so in case that you are wondering whether, for example, the freight units will be covering here or some other master data elements, here the scope determination will determine the boundaries of data related to this particular report. So important to take a look at it for each specific of the job aids. And as well, Juan, Pablo, Daniel, our colleagues here as a panelist are at the end, please feel free to intervene in case that you think I'm missing something or there is some other particular elements from the job aids or the reports technically that are worth mentioning. Okay. So going back to the demo, this is the, let's see, okay, let me go directly to the presentation. So that's the job aids, and then what we're going to do now is to do a demo, perform a demo in two steps, let's say. First, to respond to a series of very easy questions in the summary and the detailed step, and then if we have time, if not, up to you, and we will suggest you to go through this KPI sample. This is an extract of all the KPIs related to this particular report. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 KPIs from number of shippers in freight orders, gross volumes, items data in shipments, and so on and so forth, with the description of each of the KPIs and the fields that you can use in order to determine that particular, let's say, KPI in your own mission if you want. Okay, so let me go into the system and respond to the questions. So go and back so I can follow. So first question, which mission has the highest number of DTR documents? So imagine that the first prompt, the first layout that we have is at the summary level. So remember that it's a list of documents with number of documents by each of the consignees. So we are taking actually advantage of these demos to show to you a little bit of tips on how to navigate and go maneuver these reports. So if you want to sort this case from the highest mission with the highest number of DTRs to the lowest, will be just a matter of right-clicking in the measures here, right-clicking in this DTR number of documents. Wait until we see the different options, which will be filtering or sorting. If it works, because it takes a little bit of time. Here we go. So sort, let's sort in descending order. So the first one will be in this case, UNSOS, UN Support Office in Somalia. MONUSCO and MINUSMA will be the three missions with the largest number of DTRs created so far. If we do want to select the three of them, only the three of them, we will do, as we do in Excel, we select the first, let's say, cell, click Shift in our keyboard, select the third one, and then right-click. Right-click and keep members. So I'm telling the system basically to keep the three bluish rows. So I'm going to filter out the rest. So I'm going to come up only with the top 3 missions with the highest numbers of DTRs. Okay, and from there I can do an analysis, with just fewer number of rows and columns that sometimes makes our life a bit difficult, especially, and that's something we always say in the reporting academies, do a little bit of a housekeeping in the first report that you see, clean up a little bit, and then from something small, which is this type of report, then you can start then do the analysis. So those are the first 3 missions. Then second question will be from these 3 missions, which are the results by document type. Okay, so by DTR document type. So as well, if we are not sure where this attribute is, you can always go Control F and type, I don't know, a specific concept that you're looking for, and you see that it highlights in yellow. So that's the DTR document type. And the description. Always go to the description, because if you're not familiar with the codes and the master data elements, it's always, it's always best to just drag and drop description. And let's put it there in the rows and see the breakdown by document type or type of transportation, let's say, by each of these 3 missions. Write this a little bit, and you see automatically we do see as sub results for each of the missions, right? So we have DTR for UNOEs for Somalia, for MONUSCO and for MINUSMA, and the same for DTR for STOs, for COE, for troops, and so on and so forth. So another trick that you may want to know, it's sometimes you already know that that you're filtering by 3 specific consignees. So this particular column here is not relevant now. So you can always go, that these consignees are being filtered by 3 missions. You can always go and drag it to the background. That's quite important. Why? Because let's say, and even the description of the consignee. So the consignee I'm putting in the background. Why? Because now I can play a little bit more with the analysis, and it's easier for me to understand. What I have here in the screen, it's a list of document types, of type of transportation with number of documents for 3 specific missions, but I put all that information in the background. So it's this information on the consignee, it's within these numbers, but for the sake of understanding a little bit more or easier these document numbers and these rows, it's easier for me to just put all that information in the background. Another story will be to drag out those attributes in the left panel. That will be to take, if I do that, I will take out that information, and then this report will be a different one. Okay? So the background, it's always a good ally for you to clean up a little bit in the background the information, so you understand much better those numbers. So what we can see here, we see a list of number of DTRs by each of the type of transportations for the 3 missions involved. Remember, UNSOS, MINUSMA, and MONUSCO. Okay, from there, we can drag and drop and do much more specific analysis based on these attributes. Third question from the demo, and let me show to you that those questions are over here in the presentation. So the third question was, which document type has the highest amount for all missions? So here I have all document types, but for the 3 first missions, remember that it's filtered. You see this yellow funnel here. That means that this particular attribute has been filtered. So if I want to know which is the document type, the type of DTR with highest number of documents created for all missions, then I will have to work with this attribute and select, instead of those 3 missions, right? You see these 3 clicks. I will have to select all missions. Once I select everything, I click in OK. Even working in the background, these numbers will change, you see? So we can see that DTR for UNOE it's the largest document type created so far for all missions. As you can see, this is a very, let's say, high level and very simple type of analysis, but I think this is the best approach that we can do, especially for the ones of you who are not familiar with the tool. Of course, you can do much more, let's say, more complex things, and there are plenty of utilities that that are there for you to be used. And actually, what we're going to do now is to create a pie chart. So in case that you want to visualize all this data, meaning the number of documents by each of the DTRs created so far for all missions, and you want it to be represented in a pie chart, it's as easy as going to Insert. You see these three tabs here: Insert, Pie Chart. You click on pie chart, and the system understands that you want, out of this analysis, you want to break it down into different, let's say, portions within a pie chart. And the good thing about the pie chart is that gives you percentages of the total. So you can see that DTR for UNOE in blue represents almost 64% of the number of documents created so far. And in green, you'll see the forwarding orders for COE troops, which represents almost 28% of the whole sample. Over to you, Sol.
We have a question, Danny, from Jamil. It's asking that the background option that you were explaining basically is used to clean up the screen when comparing several variables. For example, in our case, the 3 different missions. I think it is the case. As far as I understand, is to keep the format, but hiding some information that maybe is not relevant for the analysis that we are trying to get. Can you confirm?
Yes, indeed. Because, for example, that from my own experience, when I started to use these reports, I was a bit overwhelmed most of the times with the amount of rows and amount of columns that I would see initially in the reports. So once you start using BI and you get more acquainted with the tool, what you usually do is you first clean up all the different measures and different attributes that are not important for you. So you drag them out. And then when that report is cleaned, and you want to focus specifically on one attribute, in this particular example, the document type description, but you want to keep some other attributes filtered or, let's say, covered, instead of dragging them out, you put them in the background. So still the report, it's affected by those attributes, in this case, the consignees, but you don't want to have those informations in the report itself, so it's easier to understand. Right? So it's in the background.
Okay, thank you, Jamil. I hope it's clear now. Thank you. Then back to you.
Okay, and just to show to you that the background filter is always active, if I just want to filter again by consignee, okay, here, and I change this filter by consignee, you'll see that the analysis in terms of numbers and the pie chart will be different. So let me unselect everything and only, let's say, come up with CD10, which is MONUSCO, for example, and Brindisi and Valencia IT01. So let's say that I select only 2 missions. I click in OK, and then the table and the pie chart will be modified accordingly, right? So we have now only 118 documents broken down by these 3 rows, and the pie chart has changed. If I want to know only information about, for example, Brindisi, I picked out MONUSCO, and then the information that you can see in the screen is only for Brindisi. Obviously, you don't see Brindisi, Valencia, or the IT01 plant, you don't see anywhere here. So please always bear in mind that it's important to understand what you're filtering out, right? And some other times it's much better to change the name of this analysis, for example, and we'll do that later. So you can put here a name, Brindisi and Valencia document types, or analysis for Brindisi. So that's up to you to change the names of these analyses, right? So always, it's a good help, this background, but you have to always be aware of what you're filtering out, because at the end of the day, the results here are not telling you to which specific consignee we're doing the analysis. Okay? So that's for, let's say, a little bit of the transportation, the type of DTR that we could see visualizing a pie chart. Then if we go to the demo, you can see create a pie chart to visualize data. And notice the percentages, we did that. Do the same analysis as per above by movement type, create a pie chart. So the good thing about all this analysis is that you can use the visualization and even this analysis in order to change the whole scenario. So now we're talking about document type description, but we can use this layout that we created and just drag out a document type and swap it with the, for example, movement type. So if I, let me just select or identify in our list of attributes where it's located movement. You see DTR, movement type description. So it's this one. And then take this opportunity to show you another good trick. You see this in the upper right part of the screen, the auto update. This is a button that is always clicked. If I click the button, now you see that the analysis gets with a grayish type of background. That means that you are basically disconnecting this report from the data or the cube of data in BI. So you can do things, you can move different attributes, or you can filter attributes without affecting the, let's say, the connection with the data. And then when you click again on the auto update, then the connection will be restored and will be applying all the changes that you have done. Why this is good, especially in the missions, because all the changes that you do in one shot when you click in auto update will be faster. And then when you click again on the auto update and you restore the connection, will be done in just one shot. And I'm going to show you right now. So auto update, it's clicked. So I, let's say, closed the connection between the data and the report. And I'm dragging out document type description. You see that it says, I mean, that's been modified. There is nothing in the rows, but you see that the analysis has not changed. And then I'm going to go to the movement, let's see, where was it? The type description here, and I put it there. And then I click on auto update, and the report and the pie chart will be changed. But let's see, and let's analyze what we have here. Of course, remember that the background filter, it's only by IT01. So let me just select for all missions. So obviously we'll have, there are plenty of movement types now for all missions. So now we do have for rotation, for door-to-door, repatriation, deployments. So those are the DTR type of documents related to those movement types, and our pie chart has been duly updated. Okay, so remember, we work a little bit with the auto update, and especially when you do in the missions, sometimes you don't have a good bandwidth in terms of connection with the server. So when you use auto update and you change things, that goes fast. And then when you are just sure about what you're doing and you've finished let's say your draggings and droppings and filterings, then you click and again on auto update, and then all those modifications are just done in one shot. So you are not, like, say, forcing the bandwidth of your mission to perform different changes one after the other, but on the contrary, you are just requesting one big change that moves the whole thing. Over to you, Sol.
Just, Danny, just to tell you that this tricks that you are sharing are the things that make the difference. So please don't save any of, of them for you, because it's very nice to learn these things, because we have them there, but sometimes we don't know. So thanks a lot. Over to you, Danny.
Thank you. So remember that what we sent yesterday in the email, the presentation on the full navigation on this type of reports. So all those, let's say, features are, thoroughly explained in the presentation, which has almost 200 slides. So that's it for covering all those things that we have the reporting academies and some other workshops. So, but I think it's important that as we do explain and go through the demos, we take advantage of this situation to explain these things, because otherwise, the analysis gets a little bit more cumbersome, and this, it's easier for all of us if we understand, how these things are done. So that in terms of movement types, so you see that only by dragging or swapping the attributes movement type by document type, I have a new report. So let me see what we have here. Analyze the data by shipper. Use only commercial shippers, removing all permanent missions and new entities. So the data will be analyzed by shipper. So let's say I can either use the movement type and link it with the shipper, or I can just remove the movement type description and just identify the DTR shipper and see the number of documents created by shipper. So what I will do, I will remove movement type. And then I'm going to, let's say, do an analysis, high-level analysis by shipper. So remember that all these attributes are in the alphabetic order. So the shipper will be S here. If you don't find it right away, we go over here. We find the shipper description. I put it there, and those DTR number of documents will be broken down by shipper. And important, I forgot to remove the pie chart. You see that the pie chart is constantly updated on these actions, right? Just a piece of advice: if you are already okay with the pie charts created before, I will remove this by clicking on the X. You remove the pie chart, because sometimes you're forcing, when you're moving different attributes in the report, and you still keep the pie chart. You're forcing the pie chart to be updated, and sometimes if the bandwidth is not good, it stays there forever. So if you're okay by just leaving out the pie chart, I would recommend to take it out. So those are the shippers. Let me open a little bit. And you see that we have their permanent missions. Why? Because I guess that those are the DTRs created for troops, right? And contingency on equipment. So if we're going to transport staff or troops, the shipper itself, it's linked to the member states. That's why we have here permanent mission of Jordan, or permanent mission of Burundi, and so on and so forth. So a way to, let's say, differentiate between commercial shipper and all those permanent missions, we can just go one by one, or we can just sort in alphabetical order the shipper description and put it A to Z. So because we know that all these permanent missions start with PM here, I can just take out, starting with permanent mission of Australia, and going all the way down to Uruguay. And remember that I'm using the shift in my keyboard in order to select from the first to the last one. I right click, and I'm going to remove them. Okay? Basically, what you're doing is you're filtering out these, let's say, shippers. And we're going to take a look at how the report looks like. Obviously, the report is going to be with fewer number of rows from 119 that you can see here originally. Probably we'll have around 70 something. Okay, so now we're going to do a quick check and see that all these guys look like they are commercial shippers. Here we go with UN logistics base on these 3 out as well, because they are not commercials. Move. And then we are focusing our analysis on the shippers, commercial shippers, let's say, for each of the DTRs. Okay. Let me see again the demo. So analyze data by shipper, use only commercial shippers, removing all permanent missions and even entities. Okay. Then from there, we can sort and see which is the shipper with the largest number of documents created so far. And then scroll up. See that it's FleshShaker, the shipper that it's been used the most, let's say in terms of DTRs. And from there, I can do an analysis only for this particular shipper and see which are the DTR numbers. For example, let's do that. Let's keep this one. So I'm right-clicking, keep members. So I'm going to keep FleshShaker, only that. And if I want to know specifics of these 49 documents, so I go to the DTR number. So it will be around here in the left panel. DTR original order. See. Number. So location DTR document number here. Sorry, I'm not so familiar yet with all the reports. So this is the document number. I drag it in, so I will see the specifics of DTR numbers for these 49 documents. So these are the DTR numbers. Then more things. Do you remember this PO? And I take this opportunity to go to the job 8, the delivery requirements of forwarding order. Remember that PO, the purchase order, is not reflected as an attribute, but it was linked to another attribute with another name. So let me just look for purchase order. You see exactly purchase order. So DTR original order shows the PO or stock transfer order linked to the movement. So I know that DTR original order is the attribute that I want to use if I want to identify specific DTRs for FleshShaker in my report. So let me go to original document, DTR original document, original order, right? Excuse me. If I drag it, let's see how it looks. So you see I have a PO linked to each of these DTRs. Okay. You see that sometimes the system gives you subtotals. The way to remove them, because this case actually these ones in yellow are not giving really a nice value, is to select. You see that these ones are just below DTR original numbers. So let me just right-click original order, right-click here, go to totals. You see it's show totals. It's activate show totals. So let me take out and select hide totals. So now I don't have that extra row. And from there, which element is driving our analysis now? The shipper description, right? FleshShaker. And then we have the document number and the PO. Let's just a piece of an advice. Let's just put in the background shipper description. Why? Because we know that we are just focusing our analysis on FleshShaker. So we're removing that column. And then we have a list of DTR numbers and then POs. Now, which is the element that is driving our analysis? The DTR number. Why? Because it's the first column over here. So what about if I want to the PO to drive my analysis, meaning that starting from the PO, I will see all the DTRs involved and number of documents. So it's as easy as just changing the order. You see original order here, and I put it just above. I put it just above the document number. So this column will be, boom, going to the first place. And I see that for each of these POs, I have a list of document numbers from DTRs. And it's easier for me to understand that I have a number of POs linked to one or more DTRs, right? Again, the subtotals are coming over here. So let me just remove, remember, right click, totals, hide totals. And this is the analysis. And then we can see that there are, for example, there is this specific PO, 22001 29452, that has plenty of DTR numbers, right? So this PO linked to a huge, let's say, number of elements in terms of transportation. So if you want to do further analysis with the status and who created the DTR, when it was created, and so on and so forth, you can actually keep this part of the analysis. On the other hand, if you want to increase the number of measures, not only the number of documents, but you want to check specifics for this PO, for example, let's do that. I'm moving out a little bit of the demo, but I think this is interesting. So let me just keep the members. So I'm keeping this PO with this number of DTRs. You see, I have 16 rows, 16 DTRs related to this PO. So let me double click of measures. Only one is ticked, which is the number of documents here, 111, okay. Let me select everything. And here for that specific PO, I have plenty of information in terms of quantity, weights, and number of items for each of these DTR documents created. There we go. So it's the analysis is not done at the number of documents, but it expands to the specifics of in terms of description of the item and the things that is being transported in terms of volume and in terms of value as well. As you can see, there are plenty of things that you can do, and this is just, let's see, the tip of the iceberg. We don't have time to cover everything. So let me stop the demo right now, and you have the demo too, which is in the detailed tab. I suggest you to go through this demo as well when you have some spare time after this training, and then I would recommend you to go to the demo 3, which is the KPI sample, so you can just identify these attributes and focus those KPIs for your own mission and see which are the results. So that will be another suggestion for you to perform after the training, this session. So we are going to cover the second report on event details, but I want to give the floor to Sol in case that we have any questions or any comments. Over to you, Sol.
So I can see we don't have any comments or questions. Are you shy, guys? Or I know that Daniel is explaining everything perfectly, giving added value with the tricks, but please don't hesitate to ask. And just to remind you guys as well, we will compile all the Q&As from these sessions. We will create a document and we will share it with you. So don't be shy. Any concern that you want to clarify, whatever, just let us know. Okay. So over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Sol. Thanks a lot. So as you can see that now we are moving to the event details report. So we are going, let me go to the folder transportation management. So we covered this morning this first report that you can see on the top. Yesterday we covered end-to-end, and now we're going to go to the event details report. Tomorrow we'll go to the freight order events and then the Power BI part. Okay. Let me go first to the presentation so you see what's, let's say, the scope of data and the business need in this case For event details, the business needs is to understand the transport process from the event rather than the freight order perspective, right? So now we have a sequence of events related to each leg of the transportation, and then we are focusing our analysis on those details of the events, details related to the unexpected or the expected events, things that have gone as planned, things that have gone not as planned in case that we had a problem with our shipment, in case of loss, damage. So that's the scope, let's say, of the analysis that we are going to cover with this report. Objective is to assess the performance of the shipments, providing differences between planned and actual dates, reported and submission dates, and their averages from a wide variety of perspectives. You'll see here that in terms of measures, we have plenty of information for averages, and that's quite interesting. You'll see that we can do a thorough analysis in terms of sequence of events for each of the documents. Analysis that we can do at hand, which analysis of events between planned and actual date in days. We can measure the vendor's performance in terms of whether the events went well and in due time. We can do an analysis of events by freight order departure / arrival dates, FO creation, who created and the date, the FO execution, the FO planning group and purchasing group, shipper, consignee, carrier. This is just an example of what you can do, but obviously you can do much more analysis. Event details, this is the job 8. Let me open it so we have it there handy. Because as I said, what I've been doing these past weeks basically is just doing the demo and understanding the reports along with the job 8s. Let me go all the way to the end so we see the scope. Remember the scope determination here. This report selects all freight order execution events with no restrictions. Okay, so we now understand scope determination. Very, very interesting. And then we'll go back to the job 8 as we perform the demo. So that's the prompt, initial prompt. As you can see that it's going to pivot this prompt to the FO rather than to the rest of documents, because at the FO level now we have all the events of the transportation. So it makes sense that the prompt gives us the chance to filter by different master data elements related to the freight order, the document itself, the departure date, arrival date, the date of creation, who created, FO life cycle status, and so on and so forth. Okay, important this part, we see this red asterisk event type. Okay, this event type, if you click, you'll see that you can select all events or the expected ones or the reported ones, right? So, and that's a mandatory field. So by default, the data that will be retrieved or pulled from the data universe will be all type of events. But you can filter by the expected ones, which will be expected events but not reported events. Or on the contrary, you can select reported, which means reported events, expected or unexpected. Okay, so based on the scope of your analysis, then you select all the expected or the reported ones, and then you'll see the sequence events. That's let's say the initial layout that we may expect if we click on OK directly with all type of events. What we're going to have here is the event description, the FO carrier description. So we have information on the events and the carrier for the FO and the document involved for FO. And then information on the difference between reported and submission date in days, difference between reported and submission date in hours, all these averages that I mentioned, and we will go afterwards. So plenty of information in terms of averages of time between planned and reported and actual dates. Okay. Remember that this report on event pivots through the FO master data elements, which are the ones related to the description of events that are happening right in the hour transportation. So before we go to the demo, let me go back to the production and just double click on event details. So we'll see how it works. You see that automatically comes by required fields, which is only one event type. We go to the match code, and we select, as you could see in the slide, expected events or reported events, or all events. Click on all. And then if I go to all fields on the left side, and I see the master data elements, mostly linked to the FOs, and a couple of them for DTR, so we can link all this FO information to document type for DTR and transportation mode for DTR as well. I click on OK, so I'm not going to fill in any particular field in the prompt. So what we see here, as you could see, we could see in the slide, event description, the carrier description, and the FO document involved, with information on averages and difference of times between report and submission date in hours, in days, and plenty of them. So let me just double click on measures and see that we have from number of events, number of freight orders, difference between planned and actual dates, difference between planned and actual date in hours, in days, different between reported and submission date in hours, average difference between planned and actual in hours, in days, average difference between reported and submission date in days. So there is quite a large amount of columns that we can use in order to define the performance of our carrier in this case, right, in terms of sequence of events. So let me select only number of events. Because I always, as you probably have noticed, I want to always start small, with a small report, and then I increase the level of granularity of the report. So I selected only one, which is the number of events, and let me just take out the event description and the FO document, which gives a lot of granularity as well. So I'm starting small, which is carrier with a number of events, right? So let me right-click on number of events, so I can sort in descending order, and so I can see in just one click of my eye, which is the carrier that it's, let's say, more active so far, right? We have here dummy carrier, which represents, that's another story, but in case that has not been selected yet, so the system puts dummy carrier. That we have here Motorola, Scan, Toyota, so plenty of them. So let me go back to the demo and see what questions we have there. Select a specific FO carrier and identify which event description has the highest average between planned and actual dates. So event description, you see here, event description should be one of the attributes, and average between planned and actual dates should be another column that we may want to click. So event description. So let's see, we have our carrier description. So probably there is an event description here. You see an attribute, event description. Open up this a little bit so we see better. So let me drag into our analysis event description. So for each of the carriers, we'll have different events and different number of events related to each of the description, right? And for each of the carriers, we can do an analysis for all of them or for a specific one in a specific consignee mission. That's up to us. So that's the number of events, but the demo is asking us the highest average between planned and actual dates. So that's a measure. Planned and actual dates. So in days, let's say, and actual dates, here in days. Over here in active dates, right? Difference between, highest average between planned and actual. Here we go, I should get this one. All right, so better keep the number of events. Okay, so let's see what the report retrieves. Yeah, so we have number of days, the average difference between planned and actual dates by each type of event by each of these carriers. Okay? Remember that these are all the events all mixed up, right? We are not identifying any particular FO document or any particular DTR document, right? If we want to identify a particular DTR or FO document, then we will have to go to the left panel and drag in, right? But let's just focus on one particular carrier. Okay? For example, this one, data service. I'm going to keep that member. I'm going to just focus my analysis on that particular carrier, and those are the events description. Okay. Another important attribute that we found out to be relevant is the event sequence. Should be sequence number over here. To drag in and see there. So what do we have here? We have here event sequence number with each of the description and for a particular carrier, right? So if we go to the job page and I look up for this particular attribute, Control F, I think it was sequence, no? Maybe I put there a typo, doesn't matter. So event sequence number, it's the number that shows the position of the event within the sequence of events recorded in the system, right? So it's starting with 85, cargo information, 90, handover document, 100, loading begin, end, proof of pickup, departure, documentation sent, so on and so forth. So until proof of delivery. So you'll see there from let's say from 85 to 900, we can call them planned events. So these events are events that are happening and will make sense that they happen in due time for a particular transportation, right? But then you see when we see 1,000 here, which is loss, that means that that loss should not be a planned event. So those will be unplanned events. So just for your information, this table from 1,000 to, let's say, 9,000 will be different sequences of particular situations when we have not planned event, like a loss, like a damage, like a particular situation where we have an issue that we have to take on account when we do analysis for this particular event and, sequence of events. So from 1,000 to 9,000, those are things, event descriptions that are unforeseen. Okay, so let me go back to the report and see that, yes, we do have 9,000, 3,000, there 11,000. So let me just focus on the unplanned events, which will be 1,000 onwards, let's say. How do we filter this event sequence number? Event sequence number, remember, you can double click or you can right click on the attribute here. I double click. And I'm going to unselect everything and only select the sequence on events that are above 1,000. So the rest are, let's say, planned more or less by the book events. So I'm going to take them out and only focus on this particular sequence. And so these ones, we have their events. So things are happening in terms of loss and delays for this particular carrier. I want to know in this case, are delays, all of them. So we have delays for this particular carrier. If I want to do an analysis of all the carriers for those particular number of events, so that will mean that we are doing some sort of analyzing the performance of all the unexpected events for all the carriers. What I would have to do is, instead of only this guy, I will have to include all the carriers, right? Not only Jet Air Service, but all of them. So we can see whether we have these type of events that we don't want to see or more than one carrier. So I'm going to select all of them. I'm clicking OK. And I'll see plenty of carriers, but only for these events, because remember that I did filter sequence number. I filtered out all the sequence number from 85 to 900. Okay, so delay, you see that there are partial delivery, here customs, delay orders. So here, obviously, we don't have difference between planned and actual date in days because we are not planning any delay, right? We are not planning any loss. Those are unexpected events. But we have here events. So we can see that this particular carrier, in terms of event description, in terms of delays, has at least 3 events, and those other carriers are only 1, right? So a bit of a sip of what you can do in terms of events. You can do actually an analysis of a particular DTR and freight order, analyzing the different actual and planned dates in hours, or you can do a kind of like a bigger analysis only related to the events that had not been planned and are in a sequence over 1,000 and over, which are delays, loss, partial delivery, and others, right? And then if you want to know particular information, if you want to drill down a little bit on these 3 events, for example, from this carrier, which seems to have the highest number of events unforeseen. So let me just keep, again, this Jet Air Service, SPA. Event description and event sequence, we know that they are delayed, so let me put them in the background. Event description, I put it in the background. Event sequence number, I put it in the background as well. So I'm going to have here just the description, which is delay, 6, which is the number of events. And let me see the carrier description here, if I can include all the carriers. If I include all the carriers, I will have, these are the total number of events related to delay, partial delivery, clear customs, others, that those are unforeseen events. So delayed, the unforeseen events that it's most common, but we have some others like partial delivery. If you want to know specifics on partial delivery, for example, you keep again number. And let me take out this average difference because that doesn't make sense, because we're not going to analyze that. So all these events. And for partial delivery, we can identify which is the document type description. So let's see which type of DTR we are talking about here. So it's DTR for UNOE. Let's put the document category here, which is 02. Let me take the FO consignee here, the FO document as well. Instead of consignee, I'm going to put the consignee description. Consignee description here. Consignee 0. You're not familiar with the codes. You see that. So it is for IMMIS. We have a couple of events related to partial delivery, and those 2 events are DTR for UNOE. Then we can identify which is the shipper. And do analysis from there. So as you can see, we always start small and then we start to add different fields in order to determine exactly who is in charge of this particular event, transport, and that is given as a delay, and we can identify which is the document number and then get in contact whoever can take action, right? Or on the contrary, what we can do is we can have a high-level view of all the different carriers and the average time between planned and actual. So depending on what you want to analyze, you will go to one, let's say, side or the other. Okay. Yes, Sol?
Just to have something, Daniel, is it possible, I guess so, to add the original document in this report as well? We have the original document, for example, the PO number that can be added in this report.
Okay, so the PO number. So let's see if you are not familiar with it. I would recommend to go to the job aid.
Okay.
So let's go to the job aid, event details, and see in Control F whether we can find.
Yes, so the original. Yes.
Which is order. Weird, I cannot find anything here. C F. Or I think it's original document.
Original document, yeah. Just out of curiosity.
Hello guys, this is Juan.
Yeah, hello Juan.
Hi.
I think it's in this particular document the PO is not there, but because the business owners decided not to add it, but it could be. So we can take also the opportunity now to any relevant field that could be added to track it and address this to the business owners. Okay.
Yes, thanks a lot, Juan. I ask this question because during the training, the report that we have in the TM tool sometimes is difficult because we are working with, for example, freight orders, or sometimes it's difficult to know this is related to which of my POs, because I'm working with PO numbers and then I have a bunch of DTR numbers or freight orders that at the very end can be linked to one PO. So they ask some of the students if it could be very helpful for them to be able to display the PO number. So that's why I asked this question, but thanks a lot. And I wanted to add, sorry, tell me.
Yes, thanks all. It's from the technical side, it's just very easy to add it because it's part of the scope of the data models. It's just a matter to approve the change.
Thanks a lot. And just to add something as well, I was thinking about during your explanation, Danny, that this report, particularly this report, I think is super useful because sometimes the CCP part of this TM, this tool, the CCP that is specific for carriers, sometimes it's easy to lose track what they are doing. Yeah, in one batch you can see what is happening, unexpected events, where, why is super useful as well. Yeah, I like it. So thanks a lot. Over to you, Danny.
Thank you, Sol. Yes, and I know that you're an expert in troubleshooting the system, so that's why, having the PO there is always interesting to take a look and go to SRM or even in ECC and identify what is going on with that document, right? Which is of paramount importance at the end of the day for when we're doing, let's say, when we purchase goods and then eventually we transport them, right? So yeah, I think that's a good advice to have the PO there, as we did have for delivery requirements and forwarding orders, and then to end-to-end. So we can always check in the end-to-end, but I doubt that we have information at the event details in the end-to-end part. But definitely, I think it's a good suggestion to have it over here. And now it's 11:21. Okay, perfect. So let me just go back to the demo and see whether we can do a little bit of more analysis. So TEM analysis is above FO shipper, so meaning that we were going to include the shipper here, right, in the situation of the partial delivery for a particular event sequence numbers, which is from 1,000 to 9,000, right? So let me create another one. So if you want to create another, let's say, analysis from scratch, you go to another tab, which is sheet number 2, and then insert a new analysis. So you can keep the analysis on this different side, and I think up until 10 tabs work. So you can actually, and I would recommend you to go to the KPIs list, and you start your analysis, and you put one KPI after another in these tabs. So as an exercise for you, I think it's quite interesting. So you get really get familiar with the different functionalities and how to create a different analysis from scratch. So let me go back to the demo and report the events prompt. So let me go to the prompt itself. Let's say that we have a blank analysis from the events, but we want to start from the prompt. So we want to see and filter from the prompt stage. So if we want to do that, we have to click here on the prompt icon. And from there, in terms of event type, we can go to the expected or reported events. In this case, the reported events, unexpected or not expected, because we want to focus our analysis on the all which has been reported. Right? If it has not been reported, it's difficult, a little bit more difficult to analyze in terms of, let's say, average of time, right? In terms of hours or days. So that's it, all the reported, and we click in OK. So again, we don't have any information because we haven't drag and dropped any particular element that we can, let's say, identify from document category here. See, starting from document category. And then include some measures. You can always drag and drop measures in the columns. And you see, and now the report is updated because we are putting numbers, which are measures, and we have included at least one attribute. So what we have here, again, document category, let me put the description because I'm not familiar with the category description. So we have measures by a little bit. So we have here delivery by transportation requirement or a forwarding order by document category description here. And information on the number of freights, number of events, difference between here, between actual date in hours and actual date in days. As a general, so the analysis now is from the DTR perspective, right? But I want to keep only the DTR. I'm going to keep DTR and leave in the forwarding orders. So I see at least 659 events. If I want to link it to the FOs, for example, FOs, carrier FOs document here. I have a huge report now I'm expecting because I'm going to have plenty of FOs, but I just want to, you know, see as well the performance, and, you know, trust me, it's going very, very fast. If we compare these BI reports with some other reports, like in procurement, for example, these transportation reports are going very, very fast. So we have all these FO documents for DTRs. You see, you have up until 477 different type of documents and information for all those FOs. But in this case, we can just, the DTR, we can just put it in the background, and we can include the DTR numbers, for example. So we're linking a DTR, an FO, one by one. DTR, document type, description, DTR. The first document here. If you're not sure about what this attribute means, I would go to the job 8 and see what's the DTR. Should be document category, first document. DTR first document will be the first delivery, transfer requirement, or forwarding order linked to the freight of events. And last will be the last DTR. Maybe we can put the first and the last, see whether they can, and remember that you cannot drag and drop two attributes in one shot, so it should be one by one. And automatically there is a subtotal, so let me right click, totals, hide totals, because otherwise the report gets really messy.
Daniel, please, if I may.
Of course, yes, Juan.
Yeah, Daniel, no, this first and last document is because at the end you can end up having different DTRs using the same freight order. This is to save cost. One of the purposes of TM is, I understand, is to consolidate different shipments in the same freight orders. So since this report is measuring events at freight order level, we just have to show the first shipment and the last one in order to keep the report showing only one freight order. Otherwise, if we show all the combinations, it's impossible to analyze the events. But it's just, this is why in this specific report you see first and last document, because we cannot show all of them. Okay.
Okay. So, as you were saying, we're linking the FO documents, each of these FO, to basically the same ETR, right? First and last. There are no.
Yes, because in this case there is only one DTR involved within this freight order. But there could be cases where two DTRs are using the same leg.
Okay. Okay. And if that happens, we will see that in. Will we be able to see that in the report by having one DTR with two FOs?
Yes, you will see the first one in the first DTR and the last one in the last DTR. But if we have 10, imagine we have 10 DTRs using the same freight order, we will see here the first one and the last one, not the 10.
But not the other 8, right?
No, that's right, yes.
Okay.
This is why, but this is because we need to show only one row per freight order.
Okay.
Okay. This is why having the first one and the last one, we will have only one row. Yeah.
So exactly, that's a good advice. Thank you, Juan, for that. So let's say on something that we didn't, although this is not part of the analysis itself, but it's something I forgot to explain yesterday. It's how you can export some of these reports to Excel. Because sometimes, especially if you're not very familiar with the tool, you come up with something that looks interesting, but you want to stop there and then start using Excel, for example, right? If that is the case, let's say that we want to extract this particular piece of information from BI, and from there we want to do the analysis in Excel. If we want to extract, there is this icon with this arrow and the box, and we select Excel, the first option. There, the system asks us whether we want to export analysis 1 from the sheet 1 and analysis 2 from sheet 2. Remember that we created another analysis in sheet 2, right? So the system understands that there are 2 active sheets and asks us whether we want to export one or the 2. By default, only the active one is ticked, but you can select both of them. and clicking OK. It's opening. Let me just drag it because it went to the other screen. So first, you have here the analysis, and the first analysis, let me go back so we see what we had in sheet 1. Remember that we only have, let's say, one event description partial delivery specific for this type of transportation. This is the FO document involved, the consignee, the FO consignee description, and the shipper. 2 events with partial delivery. So this is what has been extracted, right? Only, let's say, 2 lines with the header and the row. If we go, that's analysis 1. If we go to analysis 1 plus, that's basically the different, and correct me, Juan, if I'm wrong, this is the information related to the prompt. So if we had filtered or identified a particular master data element from these fields, then it will be over here. So
Yes.
this is the prompt initially that we actually didn't execute any. We just click in OK, right?
Yeah, you're right. You will see here the filters applied in the pop-up window, yes.
Okay. And then analysis 2, remember that this is sheet number 2. Okay, it's a larger number of records with the FO and the first and last DTR created for each of the FO documents, and measures related to the event details, right? So obviously the Excel here it's much larger. We always recommend to Control T. You click in any part of the report, you click in Control T, and you're converting the whole range of data into a very nice Excel table with automatic filters and the possibility, it's already reformatted with the possibility to insert calculations very, very fast. So I'll show to you. You see that automatically gives you results for the total range of data. Okay. So that's in terms of exporting. I want to show you another feature related to export, and something that sometimes is not so nice, but I will clean up a little bit. So let's say for each of the FO documents, let me just take DTR out. So we have a list of FO documents, and let me select a particular consignee, FO consignee here. And you can actually drag it here to the background automatically. Remember that we had already in the background unfiltered the DTR document category, which was DTR. So here we have all the consignees. And let me select only one, which, for example, NISFA. So we have the list of FO documents with information on events and average times, only for NISFA. Let me take a look at what I have filtered on document category previously, so I'm sure of what this data means. You know, it's only delivery-based transportation requirement. I'm going to include both of them, meaning whether we want to transport troops or rest of material, right? And we have a list of FOs only for UNISFA, okay? So, and let me include, because I'm going to do one thing, let me include another one, another mission, UNISFA, and then, for example, Libya. So here we have 2 FO consignees in the background and a list of FOs. And what I want to do is I want to do an analysis on for these two particular missions from the FO perspective. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to the consignees, two of them, I'm going to put them in the analysis itself. So I will be seeing here to which mission corresponds each of these FO documents, but the FO document, I'm going to put it in the background. So I would expect here only, let's say, two rows, one for UNISFA and the other for Libya, right? So this is the whole perspective in terms of FOs, in terms of a number of events, number of freights, the difference between actual date in days. So these are a little bit, I mean, you're comparing a lot of things here at the same time, right? So it's not like we can see that Libya is doing better than UNISFA or the other way around, no? But starting, as we always say, small, comparing two missions, then we can start dragging and dropping different attributes that will start to make a little bit of more sense, right? But something I wanted to show to you in terms of extracting that, let me filter measures and select only number of events, so I will only see one column. So let's say that I want to create a pie chart here, right, with all the number of events for Libya and Abjay, right? So insert pie chart. So you see the pros and cons of extracting. When you extract, yes, you can create a table and you can work a little bit with the data. You see that most of these number of events are from UNISFA rather than in Libya, and you can see that in the pie chart as well. So if you try to export the analysis and the pie chart, this is what's going to happen. You see the system identifies one sub-analysis, which is this pie chart, and only because you see this bluish, because I had selected this text, excuse me, this box, but this one in the upper level analysis 2 is not selected, so I'm going to select it over here. So I want only for sheet 2, only for this tab, the pie chart and this table to be extracted to Excel. Okay, so this is the first analysis, which is the table, not very complex. If I go to analysis plus 2, this is the, as one explained before, is the prompt that we haven't selected any part of particular element in the initial prompt. Analysis 2 sub-analysis, this is the pie chart. But you see the system exports the pie chart as a picture. So you cannot work, you can basically put there a frame, but you cannot work in the pie chart itself. So any data visualization in BI, when you export to Excel, and it can be a pie chart, it can be a line chart, it can be a donut chart, it can be a columns, clustered columns, you name it. All those visualizations of data will be exported to Excel, but in a picture. So do not expect to work on the pie chart in Excel because you will not be able to do it. Okay? And it's always in another tab called sub-analysis. Okay. So that's in terms of these exporting options, mostly in terms of exporting, because usually we do export to Excel and from there we work. Obviously, you can export to PDF, but honestly, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. In case that you come up with a nice analysis table with a good pie chart, and you want to show it to your manager or to the rest of your colleagues because you found out a specific trend on something particular that you want to highlight, and you want to put it in PDF and then send it in through email. That would be a good idea, but always bear in mind that it's always best, especially analysis workspaces, to export to Excel and from there work a little bit more. So that's in terms of events, because I don't want to spend more time on the demos. I want you to start using the analysis rather than going through all types of scenarios. That's why we have a PowerPoint here and event details. If you could select your own mission and, do these three first bullet points and then go through the KPIs only for event details, that would be great. So you can just check all these 8 different KPIs only for this particular report. I think that will give you a very good taste of, how this report works, which how, what Saul said, this is of particular importance if you want to do an analysis by each of the sequence of what's going on in the transportation. And then it would be good to see whether you can find information of a particular event, get the FO number, for example, and then go to the end-to-end report, put that particular FO number and link it to the PO. As a workaround, because there is no PO number for event details, you can always select the FO numbers or a particular reference number in this report, write it down, and then launch the end-to-end and link those references to the PO, which is the original document in the attribute in the end-to-end. Over to you, Sol. Okay, perfect. So remember that the original objective of this training on BI reporting was first to show to you the initial set of reports that are currently in production. That's number one. Secondly, to just show to you how the prompts work and what's the initial layout that you're going to get when you click in OK in the prompt, and the basics of what you can do in each of the reports. From there, you can use the demos and the documentation and the job aids and the KPI list of KPIs that we have created along with RDM in order to work a little bit on the data in BI. Okay, so this is not intended to show to you all the possibilities that you can do in terms of analysis for all the reports. The training is just intended to be kind of like an introductory step for you to start using the report. And from there, once you get familiar with the reports, then we can elaborate further training more specific to a particular process or activity in transportation management that we want to report in BI. Okay, so without further ado, we don't have any questions, right? We will go, this was the last slide, so I want to thank you for your attention, and thank you RDM guys as well, and so for your support. So you would expect after this session to receive this presentation and the link to the job aid as well. And then bear with us because it will take a little bit of time because we have to render the session and transform into MP4. We will place that MP4 in our playlist in YouTube. And from there, you can just share the link or go through again to the session in case that there was something that was not clear initially. And remember that tomorrow we have our last session with the last report on event details. Excuse me, event, I think it's around here. Here, sorry. Drag and drop. Okay, so tomorrow we have the continuation in case that you have any questions on event details, and then we'll go to freight orders events, and we will talk a little bit on the BA dashboard introduction and do a small wrap up. From there, we will finalize this first set of training on BI transportation management. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.